You did not arrive on that day by accident. Somewhere between the calendar and the clock, something else was already deciding, and you were the only one in the room who didn't know it. You've spent your whole life being told this was random, a date, a coincidence. It was never that. The moment you were born was cut to fit you, the way a key is cut for one lock, and that shape has a name: Zodiac. Not the version printed next to your coffee order, the real one. Nobody tells you where it actually comes from. Long before anyone called it astrology, separate peoples who never met, never traded, never shared a language, all arrived at the same idea on their own. They watched the sky at the hour a person entered the world and wrote it down like it mattered, not as decoration, not as poetry, but as instruction. Different names, different symbols, the same 12-part structure showing up again and again, independently, across water nobody had crossed yet. That kind of repetition doesn't happen by accident. Coincidence explains one civilization guessing right. It does not explain a dozen of them guessing the same thing without ever comparing notes. Somewhere along the way, that knowledge got smoothed down into something you'd read for fun, printed next to a crossword, stripped of the part that used to matter, the part that said your birth window was not just a description of who you are. It was an assignment, a role written before you had the language to accept or refuse it. What comes next is not a horoscope. It's the version they didn't strip out. If that already feels true, like this and subscribe now, the pattern you just heard is universal. But what's next is yours specifically, your sign, and exactly what it was built to carry. 12 signs, 12 different instructions. Here's what each one was actually built to do, starting with the one that moves first. Aries is the one who moves before anyone gives permission. The instant a room goes quiet, waiting for someone to take charge, Aries has already decided that's them, and they never once said it out loud. That certainty isn't confidence, it's speed mistaken for being right, because Aries rarely waits long enough to find out if they were. You already knew, didn't you? Taurus outlasts. Everyone who ever tried to rush them, every person who pushed, every deadline that was supposed to force a decision, gone, while Taurus is still standing exactly where they started. The trouble is, Taurus can outlast the reason itself too. They'll stay long after whatever they were waiting for has already left. How long did you wait to move? Aries moves before permission ever arrives. Taurus waits until leaving costs less than staying, and each one is quietly convinced the other has it backwards. Gemini does not actually have two personalities the way people love to joke about. They have one personality, fully rewritten for whoever happens to be standing in front of them, updated in real time, with no memory of the last edit. Ask them who they were last week, and they'll describe someone who technically doesn't exist anymore. Which version showed up today? Cancer keeps a record, but not of what was said, of exactly how you made them feel, filed away with a precision that would surprise you, while the actual sentence is long gone. Somewhere in there is a door that was never officially closed, just quietly stopped being used. Who's still behind that door? Hold that thought, because by the time we reach Scorpio, you'll understand why the sign everyone warns you about is actually the one that forgives the most. Leo built a version of themselves that could survive a room that refuses to notice them, and somewhere along the way stopped adjusting the volume for people who weren't going to look up anyway. The mistake Leo makes is reading that silence as rejection instead of just distraction. When did you stop shrinking? Virgo fixes things. Nobody asks them to fix and calls it nothing, a small correction, not worth mentioning, while quietly keeping the receipts on every single time they did it. The grace Virgo hands out so freely to everyone else somehow never makes it back around to Virgo. What have you let stay imperfect? And here is why that matters more than it sounds. The signs that look the strongest on the outside are usually the ones doing the most unpaid work just to stay that way. Libra already knows what they want within the first few seconds. The decision itself is instant, but they'll spend the next 2 hours explaining themselves so carefully that nobody in the room feels like they lost. Out loud, everyone gets agreement. In private, Libra has an opinion they will never let you see. What did peace cost you this week? Scorpio's intensity was never something they turned on for effect. It's what you feel standing near them when they are completely, deliberately calm, which is somehow worse. They will forgive you out loud in front of everyone and keep the exact details in a place you will never be shown again. Who's still on the list? Which one of those two are you already recognizing in yourself? The one who keeps the peace, or the one who keeps the score? Sagittarius leaves a room before their own body has caught up to the decision, already halfway out the door while everyone else is still asking what happened. They call it freedom, right up until the version of freedom they keep choosing starts looking a lot like leaving before anything can be asked of them. What did you call growth this year? Capricorn was already working before everyone else finished deciding whether the work was even worth doing. Up early, staying late, treating the whole thing like a debt only they can see the balance of. Rest, to Capricorn, doesn't feel earned. It feels like falling behind with better lighting. When did you last not feel behind? Sagittarius runs from being needed. Capricorn runs toward being useful. Neither one has quite figured out that both are just different ways of avoiding the same thing. Aquarius can be standing in the middle of a crowded room and somehow still not be fully in it, present enough to be seen, absent enough that nobody could actually describe what they were thinking. They call that independence. It might just be the one place they've never let anyone follow them into. Who actually knows the real version of you? Pisces absorbs a room before a single word gets said in it, walks in already knowing something is off, even if nobody has told them what, even if nothing is technically wrong yet. They'll apologize first, every time, just to avoid finding out for certain that you're upset with them. Whose feelings are you carrying right now? None of this was ever really about which sign turned out to be yours. It was about what you were placed here to carry, and whether you've spent enough time sitting still to notice the weight of it. You were never randomly assigned. You were placed, deliberately, specifically, the way something is set down exactly where it needs to be and nowhere else, and the only real question left is whether you've noticed what that placement has been quietly asking of you every day since. Somewhere, at some ordinary hour, on some ordinary day that didn't feel like anything at the time, you arrived. Nobody in that room understood they were watching a beginning. They just saw a date get written down. You've been living inside what that date meant ever since, whether you noticed it or not. Comment the exact moment you first felt like your sign, before anyone ever told you what it meant.